Hi, I'm Old Norse Specialist Jackson Crawford. I'm here today at the National Library of Norway with Johanne Ostad, a research librarian, and she's going to show us a really special object. So tell us about yourself a little bit first, what you do here, and then tell us what we're looking at.
Okay, so I've been working at the National Library for 10 years, and I work in the section for rare books and manuscripts, and there I look at, sort out, present old manuscripts, actually, like the one we see here.
And as a side note, why is it so dark in here?
It is dark and it is very cold, and this is because we need to keep the manuscripts safe. They don't like a lot of light, they don't like warm climate, so this is why we keep it like this.
Makes sense to me. And so this one here, what makes this so special?
This is, I like to say, actually the jewel of our collection. And it looks so small and innocent, but it's really a spectacular object. And this is because this is one of Norway's oldest books that we know of, and it is the oldest binding that we have in Norway.
How old?
It's about 1150, 1200. It's difficult to date it exactly, but about that time.
Right. And of course, this book's contents are in Latin. And what are the contents?
This is what we call a psalter, which are the psalms from the Bible. And this was used in everyday life for the people. They sort of structured their week around it, and one day they read one part, the next day they read another part. Yeah.
Whose possession would this have been in?
Well, it's called the Kvikne Psaltery, which means that it belonged to the Kvikne church. It was later found in an archive after a priester, actually. So he had it and he had used it, but of course there is a long story of provenance that we don't know about.
Right, sure. And tell us a little bit about this cover here, the wooden cover, what we're looking at. There's some writing, some of which looks familiar and some not so familiar.
Well, this binding is made out of wood. We don't know exactly what kind of wood because that has not been tested, but we assume it is oak. And you see that there is some text. And the interesting thing is that the language of these two little texts that you see is Old Norse. But it is written one part in Latin letters and one part in runes and some Latin letters.
Which is a fascinating combination. I mean, part of what's so fascinating about it to me is that this is still a period when you're finding objects that are entirely in runic writing. It's also a period where the Roman alphabet is fairly new to Scandinavia. But it's so strange to me and so thought-provoking to see someone who has competence enough in both to kind of code switch alphabets, right? To me, that actually speaks to high competence in both. So who's the person who's so competent in both? And what impels you to write in both on here? Because we see, and I'll have a close-up on the screen of this, but we see some Latin writing at the very bottom where the word Psaltery is pretty readable. And I think Kvikne at the top. Is that right? Along the bottom?
Not entirely.
Okay.
Shall I tell you, or you want to try to?
If I try it right now, I'm going to knock the camera over, so probably just tell me.
Okay. No, the Latin letters says that Herren lesa Psaltery. So here the Psalter was read.
Oh, okay.
This is where the Psalter was read.
Huh. And then you have above that what looks like a very large rune U with a tail on it. I guess it could be a bind rune, but I don't know what the combining rune would be to put that tail on the U. Do we know what that's for or what that means?
No, we don't. We know the other text that is there, what that means.
Right, which I, of course, read fluently immediately.
Yes, you did. I can prove that.
As Kvikne Kvikne Onsø, that's untrue. I could read the Kvik, and then it starts off. I guess the lines are deeper carved to start with, and then it gets shallower.
Looks like it.
Yeah, but I read the Kvik, and then I'm like, I don't know. And of course, we have the 3 dots used to separate words.
Exactly.
Which is, it speaks to how different these writing traditions are. Because, of course, in Roman writing, you use spaces between words. But in runic writing, you almost never see those spaces, but you do see the dots. So this is someone who's, again, fully inhabiting both of these writing traditions. Right?
If it is the same person.
True.
We don't know.
And I wonder about that big runic U. I wonder if is that the initials of an owner?
Could be. Could be.
Someone named Vermunder or Bestein or something. Ulver even, right? That would use the U. Yeah.
Could be. We don't know, unfortunately.
And what else can you tell us about the binding? I can see, what is this leather that's attaching the two halves of the cover?
And you can see what we do here in the exhibition is that we turn the material around so that it is not exposed to so much light. And on the other side, you can see that there has been some sort of lock on it that has kept the whole thing together. But then you would have to go behind the manuscript and look from the downstairs. But that has been probably, we are not quite sure, but we see that there has been taken out quite a lot from this manuscript and put back in, and other pages have been put in, so it's sort of a collection of text that has been used, and they have put in what they want to use, and really an object of everyday use, so to speak.
Right. In profound contrast to the laws of Magnus, the lawmender, right back here in a 1300s manuscript, obviously meant for display. Or, and Johanne Ostad is pointing this out, we have this edition of Snorre Sturluson's Heimskringla, translated into Norwegian, for an audience about 100 years ago, right? And these used to be in so many homes, and it's. She pointed out what an interesting contrast this is, right? Real medieval, a real medieval text used by real medieval people, and a medieval text meant for kind of modern purposes, including just display. Arguably the Snorri book is prettier, but this is such a realer part of the world in which, of course, Snorri lived.
That's true.
Right up to the Latin used in the church.
And the thing is, what I think is so interesting is that in this one object, we have a sort of moment in time of the linguistic diversity that was in our country at that time.
Of course.
Because what we like to say is that we got away with the Latin very early, much earlier than Denmark and Sweden, and that we used the vernacular in religious settings. And to a certain degree that is true. But this also showed what an important role Latin still had in our society.
Of course.
And you see all of them. You see Old Norse, you see the Latin, you see Latin letters, you see runes, all in just one little object.
Yeah. It really is a time capsule.
It is.
Well, thank you very much for taking the time to talk to us about it.
My pleasure.
And from beautiful Norway, wishing you all the best.